And welcome back to America's Retirement Headquarters, home of the Retirement Guys Formula, America's Medicare Associates with Nolan Baker, Scott Kirshner, special guest Curtis Stevens. 419-794-3030 is the phone number. The website's arhq.com. Often on the show here, we talk about getting to, through, and beyond retirement. Let's talk about that last part here, beyond retirement. The latest numbers show that millions of Americans, they still haven't written a will. A recent poll by Gallup shows nearly 50% didn't have one in 2021. Another survey by Schwab shows among those with assets of $1 million or more, 20% didn't have a will. I have to wonder, is this common with people that you guys sit down with, and how can you help?
It's scary, but it's true. You know, if you think about it, there's been several topics that we've talked about on this radio show in the past. You know, if you think about it, you think about famous individuals who died without a will, and you look at the complications and disputes that happen over their estate. We think about, Prince, Aretha Franklin, Pablo Picasso, Bob Marley, Jimi Hendrix. In each one of these cases, it was a complete disaster on what happened, not only from wasted money and taxes and confusion among family members, which leads to fighting. That same scenario is true. A lot of times people think, well, I'm not wealthy. I don't need to have an estate plan. I was just recently talking with a couple. These were a younger couple. They were starting out in life. And they have a daughter. They're at the phase of starting to build. And, one of the things that I talked to them about is the importance of getting their estate plans put in place. There's a couple of different resources that you can do, whether it's an online service or whether it's a membership service or whether it's meeting with an estate planning attorney. There's options and solutions. And it's not difficult to write a will or an estate plan. But having things put in place allows you to clarify what your wishes are. So in this particular example of this couple that I met with, God forbid something happens to the husband and wife and they pass away. They have a daughter. Mm-hmm. And so my natural thought is if they don't have their wishes documented, you've got the grandparents on both sides who are going to get into this big argument, match, lawsuit. You're going to have the court involved to help figure this out, which is going to create foster type issues. It's going to create financial issues. It's going to create legal issues, court issues, and waste of time and money. And here you could have two grandparents that just could have known just by having things put in place. So really, without a will or a trust, you're giving up the opportunity to say who's going to administer your estate, who's going to be the guardian for your minor children, and who's going to get what. If you die without a will, there's a range of state laws that dictate, who's going to get your assets, who your loved ones are, and who may get nothing. They may get kicked out of the family and could be left with hefty tax bills. Retirement accounts, life insurance policies generally pass to who's listed on the beneficiary form. And if you, leave it blank or you don't have a will, your state's laws are going to typically apply. Now, Scott, you and I have talked a lot about this on the show.
You sure have.
And, unfortunately, we've seen this happen even in our own families. And so one of the things that we've done for you, our listeners, is we've created the ultimate estate planning guide.
Yeah, absolutely. This guide is designed to help you move through this. Like we've said, we talked at the break, it's the numbers are staggering for the people that don't actually have a will put in place. It's not that difficult, and you are forfeiting your wishes and your rights if you don't have a will put in place. So what we did was we created the Ultimate Estate Planning Guide to help you at least get that started. It's not a will, but it is a guide that will help you determine, do I have the right beneficiaries? Do I have all of the passwords for the accounts that we have? Are all of my assets listed? Who's going to get what, where, when, and how, right? And if you don't have something put in place, you're just going to miss out on this. I mean, you just really, really are. I know when I created, when my two children were born, I designated a executor for my children, and I designated an executor for my finances. And I did not have, and this is just some advice for people out there. And I've had people ask me these questions. Well, what should I do? I'm not an attorney, so I don't give that kind of advice, but I told them what I do. And one of the things I did was I didn't want to put the person in charge of my money and the same person in charge of my children. And here's why. I mean, think about it. If you have someone that is going to take your children and they already have 2 or 3, kids. I'll use you for example. I've got 2. You've got 2. If you were named as my executor of my children, if something happens to me, now your family of 4 just became a family of 6. Well, you might need to get a new van. You might need to update your house, add on, whatever you may do. Well, where's that money going to come from? Well, hey, you've got my kids. Why not use my money, right? So these are ideas, and a lot of people don't even think about these things because the numbers are showing most people don't even put a will in place, right? So if any of you want the Ultimate Estate Planning Guide, you reach out to us. You can send us a message on our on the website. You can send Nolan or I emails. You can contact our office here. We will get you a copy of that Ultimate Estate Planning Guide. That is at least a start that's going to help you out. I mean, these are things that we've put together.
Yeah, so 2 good examples there, and you can get that by calling the office, 419-794-3030. So again, as we talked about, the example of somebody who has minor children. So if you have minor children in your family and you don't have a will or estate plan, so crucial. Scott, in your situation, using you as another example, if you have a blended family,
Sure,
life
absolutely.
changes. So if you
Yep.
have a blended family, your wishes are going to be a little bit different. It's, what your wishes are important to make sure that they are brought up to speed as you've had family changes that have occurred as well. I think of one other story. I had a lady who came to our office, and she unfortunately had shared the story with me about her mother was very ill, and her mother was in a nursing home. Her mother was at the point where she was unable to make decisions for herself. So her daughter was stepping in, acting as the power of attorney. And her daughter, by going through creating a financial inventory, which is one of the things that we have in this checklist, she found out that mom did not name a beneficiary on her 401k. Now, this daughter actually happened to be the only living daughter of this particular mom, right? So it was mom's only kid. So naturally, it would make natural sense that mom would have named her daughter the beneficiary. But because of the fact that there was no beneficiary on file, mom unfortunately passed away. And with the power of attorney, she was missing the language that gave the daughter the power to name a beneficiary, because it can be a conflict when you have a beneficiary also as your power of attorney. You got to make sure that the language is right inside of there. So the daughter, being the power of attorney in the document, didn't have clear language that said you can name yourself the beneficiary. So the financial firm refused to update the beneficiary form. When mom passed away, all that stuff became probatable, 100% taxable, and it's the tax ticking time bomb that went off. Now, I would say 90% of the times we find those type of mistakes, some of the things that we've already talked about,
exactly.
is issues that we can help solve for you by going through the Ultimate Estate Planning Checklist. Curtis, what about you when you're going through people? And again, what I would caution all of our listeners is neither of us are attorneys. We're not trying to give you legal advice. We're just trying to talk to you about the importance of working with an attorney or a professional to get this put in place. But when you're looking at this as part of that comprehensive fiduciary obligation to take care of clients, what are the things that you're finding with the people that you're meeting with?
Well, first of all, for all of you out there, just to clarify, your medical power of attorney and your legal power of attorney are all handled through your will. POD and TOD on bank accounts. It's like a beneficiary for your bank account. If you don't have that, for whoever's going to be your trustee or handle your estate, do that. And you'll do yourself a favor. It's incredible how many people have a trust and don't fund it properly. If you have a trust, ensure that it's funded properly. Otherwise, it doesn't count. So those are just some of the big ones that I see that just blow my mind. People pay for their attorney, and then they don't fund it properly. Just taking the time to ensure beneficiaries are in the right place on the right assets help control that ticking tax bomb.
And it's one of those things where it should be reviewed from time to time because beneficiaries change, whether in addition to the family, a loss in the family, whatever changes may come down the line. So it's important to not just have one of these set up, but also be able to review it periodically, on an annual, semi-annual basis to avoid a lot of headache and heartache down the line. This Ultimate Estate Planning Guide made available to you guys complimentary as a way of saying thank you so much for joining us here on the show. Just give a call, 419-794-3030, or you can go to the website, drop a line there, arhq.com.